Welcome, everyone. I am so glad you're here. Today, on our Positive Psychology Hour, a workshop and a series that in whole in relationship with Whole Being Institute, we are going to be talking with Sue Knigh Deutsch, and she is going to be presenting Inspire Your Ideal, a practice to create your ideal self and inspire others on your journey. Sue is a cantor, and we're going to hear a little bit more about her in a moment. Most of us can pinpoint or point to someone in our past or present who has inspired us to become who we are in the world. But what if we can learn from their inspiration to further transform into our best version of who we aspire to be? Today, in this hour, Sue Knigh Deutsch will introduce us to a practice to navigate the pathway toward our ideal self. We really can change our world and the world at large. Please, everyone, take a moment to grab a pen, a paper, your imagination, and yourself. I want to tell you a little bit about Sue. I've had the pleasure of getting to know her a little bit today, and she's amazing. She's a cantor, and she is the adjunct clergy at Temple Beth El of South Orange County, California. Author of The Healing Hand, 5 Discussions to Have with the Dying Who Are Living, and an internationally acclaimed speaker. Trained as a psychiatric social worker in her native England, she received hospice training after being accepted into the Cantors Assembly, while serving as a spiritual leader and chaplain. The experience of losing her husband to cancer led her to a positive psychology workshop led by none other than Dr. Maria Serwa. And that, of course, deepened her calling. Sue holds her certificate in positive psychology through the Whole Being Institute and is a licensed facilitator of WBI's Inspire Your Ideal, a whole being happiness workshop. She travels to speak and teach workshops on how to be present, especially for those who are ill and their families, as well as mindfulness and resilience workshops based on positive psychology, while she continues her love and her passion, which is writing. She is an alumna of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality's Clergy Leadership Program and an ICF credentialed coach. She contributed to the new book, Finding Unshakable Happiness, and we'll hear more about that in a upcoming Positive Psychology Hour. For more information, we're going to put this in the chat. You can contact her at cantorsue.com. I welcome to the call Sue Knigh Deutsch. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm just delighted to spend time with you. And first and foremost, can you just tell me, I know that you had that workshop with Maria. Did that lead you to the certificate in positive psychology, to the SIP program, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. I met her in 11 years ago in 2010. I'm going to talk about this later. I met her in 2010 at Esalen after my husband had died, and it so changed the trajectory of my life that I kept following her around to different places wherever she was presenting. And then she started working for the Whole Being Institute. She with Megan McDonough and Tal Ben Shahar. And then I wanted to take this certificate in positive psychology, but I'm a cantor, and it was always around the high holy days, and I couldn't get to Kripalu for the immersion, and I just was too busy with work, and I really wanted to give it my time. And so the time was never right until I quit my pulpit in 2015. And then I was in this place of, now what do I do? And then I joined SIP and I took my first immersion at Kripalu in 2015. And it's changed my life. The trajectory just moved forward.
Yeah. I love that you picked a time of transition, and we've been talking about this being a time of transition. And of course, at the top of August, we had Maria and Megan McDonough talk about reemergence anxiety and transitions, and this is definitely a time of transition. And I love that you picked intentionally a time of transition to do the SIP program. And I just want to encourage anyone, if you're considering that, I'll put a link in the chat to the Whole Being Institute. There's a new cohort. They're starting one in a few weeks, in August, and there's still time to sign up for that. Now, Sue, I am so excited about what you're going to present today. I'm going to let you get started. Everyone, you're in for a real treat because I believe you being a cantor, we might actually get to hear you sing. Is that right?
Maybe. Music, I've always said I think in terms of music. When something comes to me, a song just pops in my head. So good morning from California, and good afternoon to New York. And I'm seeing people in Connecticut, Miami, New York City. I'm seeing friends, longtime friends, and people who are not yet my friends, but hopefully will be, from New York City, from Portland, Oregon, from Florida, from Canada. Oh my goodness. Well, welcome to this Positive Psychology Hour. Singing, okay. I see the moon sees me, the moon sees somebody I want to see. So God bless the moon, and God bless me, and God bless the somebody I want to see. You probably weren't expecting a nursery rhyme from a cantor, but this is a song that's special to me, one of many, that was sung to me by my Uncle David, who was the cantor of the third largest synagogue when I was growing up in England. He became my surrogate father when my own father died when I was 6 months old. And so he would sing me to sleep every night. And sometimes he would sing nursery rhymes, and sometimes it would be cantorial music, and sometimes it would be Yiddish songs, and sometimes it would be Shakespeare even. So he gave me my love of music, but more than that, he gave me a love of looking up at the moon and the stars and seeing something greater. And he gave me that entrance into spirituality that later in my life, it's one of my strengths, is something that I could depend on in times of transition and celebrate in times of joy. So if you've noticed about the moon, I sang about the moon. If you've noticed in the last couple of days, if you've looked up at the moon, it is a new moon right now. And that means, because the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, that it's a new month. It's the month of Elul. And this is a month that means it's the lead-up month to Rosh Hashanah. In fact, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is exactly a month from today. I will be standing on the pulpit singing. It's a time when Jews look back at the year past and hope for the year coming up. We pray for a happy new year ahead. We examine ourselves, and we also hope and try to create what we would like to envision for the upcoming year. So it's a perfect time to consider what our ideal self is and what our aspirations are, as well as consider those people who inspire us. A friend of mine from New Jersey said to me, you know, this past year with all the courses I've taken, if I hear another acronym, I'm going to spit. I said, oh, well, I kind of live on acronyms. I love acronyms because they serve as reminders. So today I'm going to present to you an acronym that I learned in my SIP course in Positive Psychology from Tal Ben-Shahar. And this is called the BEST I. BEST-I. The BEST I, even if you don't remember what all the letters stand for, still gives you an idea of the word. Just best is good enough, because everything you have, all the best you have, is already inside you. So as the Whole Being Institute does, we usually start with a mindful moment, and I'd like to begin with a mindful moment to go into the B of best, the breathing. So I'd like you to take a moment, please, to settle yourself. If you're sitting, I'm at a standing desk, so my feet are going to be grounded. If you're sitting, feel your sit bones. Just get comfortable wherever you are. Imagine that there's a thread coming out the top of your head, reaching to the heavens. So you're reaching up to the heavens and you're grounded in the earth. And in between your head and your feet are this wonderful spine. Stack all your bones. Let your shoulders come back and down. And just with the out-breath is your friend. Because what happens when you breathe out? Eventually you have to breathe in. And sometimes when you're stressed, if you breathe in first, you can hold the breath. So always begin with this out breath of and then take a lovely breath in and let it out. And in and out. And I invite you to close your eyes or to lower your gaze and breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. And now just breathe normally. Just notice the breath. Notice if you're breathing out through your mouth or your nose. I like to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. And just breathe normally. And now I'd like you to bring to mind an image of someone who inspires you and who makes you smile. It could be someone from your past or your present, or even someone in your imagination. Just someone that makes you smile. Someone that brings inspiration. Imagine the expression that they have on their face. Are they smiling? Are they looking directly at you? What are they doing? Where are they? And what about them inspires you? And breathing in and breathing out. Notice the details, the specific details of what this person does or says or who they are that really makes you smile and inspires you. I'll let you sit with that image for just a few moments. And when you're ready, come back to the screen, open your eyes, shake it out a little bit, stretch up maybe, shake it out. Keep that image, keep that feeling. You know, in positive psychology, we say that when you smile, the physical action of smiling sends endorphins to your brain and actually makes you feel happier. And sometimes if you can't smile, if you can't do that, that will help you smile.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Thank you. So I'd like you, if you'd like, to type into the chat or write down on the paper and with the pencil that you have, who it was that came to your mind and what was the qualities and strengths of this person. What was it about them that inspired you? What is it about the person that makes you smile? sister. Sylvia says her sister, her bravery and curiosity, strengths. Joanne, love. Vance, warmth, unconditional love. Gail, adventure, courage. Janella, knowledge, joy, passion. Amy, Jesus and his mercy, grace, forgiveness. Laughter, humor. Nancy, bravery and vulnerability. Oh, I am seeing so many strengths coming out here. Character strengths, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Wonderful. Maria Sirois. Yeah, me too. And I saw my coach here, Bev Martin. She inspires me too. So I want to tell you a story about a teacher. Mrs. Beneducci, 5th grade writing teacher in Detroit. It's a true story. In 1960, she's standing in front of her 5th grade class and she sees a mouse. And the mouse is running around and she's trying to catch the mouse, but it's too quick. And the children are seeing the mouse and they get up on the chairs and there's pandemonium in the class because there's this mouse going around and they can't catch the mouse. But there's one student that's been challenging for Mrs. Beneducci because he's blind. Little Stevie, he's sitting in the corner and he's blind. And he just isn't taking part in this whole thing because he can't see. So Mrs. Beneducci said to the kids, if you could just be quiet, if I can get you to just be quiet, little Stevie will help us catch the mouse. And everybody was like, little Stevie, he's blind. How is he going to help us catch the mouse? And she turned to little Stevie and she said, Stevie, you have a really acute sense of hearing. I just know if everybody will be quiet, you can locate the mouse for us. So she got everybody to be quiet. And within seconds, little Stevie had located the mouse rummaging through the wastebasket, and Mrs. Beneducci was able to take the mouse and set it free. Years later, little Stevie would be interviewed, and he would say that day when Mrs. Beneducci recognized that he had a strength of hearing was a defining moment for him. That day, he stopped feeling sorry for himself for being blind, and he started to look at what he could do. And he started to listen to the music in his head. And sure enough, he became one of the most influential musicians of our time. His name was Stevie Morris, and if you don't recognize that name, his stage name was Stevie Wonder. I love that story because it points to how someone else pointing to our strengths, to what we have, can bring out and inspire the best in us. And you have just imagined or thought of people that have done that for you. You already have those things inside you, and you can discover them for yourself. I began with singing about my uncle. My uncle inspired me with music, with looking up, with spirituality. It wasn't until I was 40 years old that he inspired me to become a cantor. Because in the late 50s, early 60s, when I was growing up, women weren't cantors, especially in Orthodox settings. So I never thought of becoming a cantor. But I was spiritual and I learned. I studied Talmud, I studied Hebrew, I can speak Hebrew. And at the age of 40, I was a member of a conservative synagogue married here in California. And my uncle came to visit me and he heard me singing in the synagogue and he said, you know, Sue, America has a place for you. The conservative movement has a place for you. You could become a cantor. And I said, well, my voice isn't that great. I don't have an operatic voice. I'm not, like, he said, but you have the knowledge and you have a sweet voice. You just need some training. And so the next year, 41 years old, I started training to become a member of the Cantors Assembly. And sure enough, before I turned 50, I joined the Cantors Assembly. And within a few years of being a cantor, Chazan, I found myself on the executive council and going to the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York and attending meetings. It was amazing. And that was just because he recognized and had nurtured throughout my life courage and spirituality. Another person who really got me to where I am today, to standing here talking to you about positive psychology, is Dr. Maria Sirois. And she's been mentioned in the chat. Caroline mentioned her in the beginning. My husband died in 2009, and a year later was when I broke open. I had been trying to function that whole time and grieving, and it got to the point where I just didn't know, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to take a break from my work. And it was just after Passover, just after the anniversary of his death. He had been to a place called Esalen, which is an institute, an educational institute in Northern California. And my husband brought me back this t-shirt. So I'm a runner. I went running that morning. I threw on a t-shirt, didn't notice what t-shirt it was I was throwing on. But I did what Uncle David taught me to do. I looked to the heavens and I said, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? And I looked down and Esalen was written across my shirt. And I didn't even know if it was still there. So I went online. I found that the 1 week I could get away, there was a workshop being taught by Dr. Maria Sirois called Water in the Desert, Faith, Hope, and Awe in a Time of Loss. And I went, and it changed my life. And I followed her around after that for years, and I wanted to take the positive psychology course, and it was never the right time, but the right time came, and that too changed my life. I think I've been through about 50 transformations in the last 11 years. So that's another person that influenced me. I'm now in I had COVID last year. I was in hospital with it, and I'm now a COVID long hauler. And I'm now in that place of no longer and not yet. That liminal space of I haven't yet fully recovered, and I don't know, I have to create my new self. So I'm doing this as well. And this practice, the best I, is really helpful. But before going into the EST of the best I, I'd like to skip to the very last letter, the I. The ideal self that's already inside you, and I want to start creating with you. So I'd like you to take a few moments, if you would, to write down what the qualities and values of the person you brought to mind has or inspires you. I'll give you a couple minutes to write down. You can do it in sentences, but what is it about that person that inspires you? And when you've written a couple of those values, if you've written them in sentences, I'd like you to circle them. And if you just have them written out, put them in a list. like a shopping list. I see forgiving, responsible, amazingly creative. I see those in the chat. Possibility of being, learning. Now, in front of those words, in front of those qualities, write the words, I am. I am forgiving. I am amazingly creative. I am learning. This is a quick way to create a short list of qualities of your ideal self. You see, the words that you chose are the values and qualities that you admire in someone else, and also that you're ready to bring out in yourself. And you can create your ideal self by looking at the strengths that you used when you were at your best and admiring in someone else. And in positive psychology, those are called character strengths. And there's a way, if you don't know what your character strengths are, you can first look at this list. If you don't know what your character strengths are, there's a website from Values in Action via character.org that will be that you can take a free test, and you can take it as often as you like. I take it about every 3 to 6 months because these values and strengths change over time. Some get stronger, and we can use them to create our ideal self. So how do you use them? All right, well, I'll tell you another story. I mentioned that I quit my pulpit back in 2015. It took a while for me to decide that I needed to go and that I needed to move. And I was really afraid because I had no other pulpit to go to. I was tired and I didn't want to reinvent myself and go straight to another pulpit. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I felt that by leaving my only source of income as well as my work, what was I going to do? It felt like I was going to jump off a cliff. So I looked at the character strengths that I had, that Maria had brought out, had introduced me to. And I noticed that one of them was bravery. And I thought, well, if it means that I feel like I'm going to jump off a cliff, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I hired a paragliding instructor, and he took me 3,000 feet up to the top of a cliff in Malibu. He strapped me to like a baby carrier, so I was facing out and I was strapped to his front. And he said, now, I want you to run to the edge of the cliff, and when the ground disappears beneath your feet, I want you to keep running. I don't like heights very much, but I'm brave. So I start running. And as I'm getting closer to the edge of the cliff, it's like, I can't change now. I got to do this. And I'm running. And then I realize there's no more ground beneath my feet. And I keep running. And I realize that I haven't actually had to jump. I was lifted by the glider. And this for me was such an image of an abundance and back to the spirituality of there's something greater than me. That I can quit my job and I will be lifted. I will be okay. We stayed up in the air for another 30 minutes. And then another strength came forward to be able to see the perspective. I was up there looking down at the earth, and everybody looked like little ants. And it gave me a different perspective, and it taught me, I need to look at things differently. Maybe when I jump off the cliff, things will appear that I can embrace. So after 30 minutes up in the air, He said, it's time to come in for a landing. He said, now, when you come in for the landing, we're going to land on the beach. I want you to put your legs straight down. If you're a man, I would say hang by your, humor's one of my strengths, hang by your, and keep your legs straight. And when you hit the ground, stay upright. Don't go forward. You'll be tempted to go forward. Don't go forward because the glider might be carried out to sea. So I put my legs down and we landed, and he's behind me and he's like twice my size and the glider's pulling, and I couldn't stay upright. I fell flat on my face into the sand and the glider started to drift out to sea. And I heard him yelling behind me to the people on the beach, grab the glider, grab the glider. And before I knew it, he was pulling me up and the glider had been grabbed. And what I learned from that is that even if I fall flat on my face, there'll be people there to help me up. I can call out to people to help me up. So these strengths and my acting on them helped me move forward. Interestingly enough, I could have just gone to a top of a cliff and jumped off. That wouldn't have been very prudent. Prudence told me to hire a paraglider who'd been doing this for 25 years and had never had an accident. I'm very good at crossing my T's and dotting my I's, so that's one of my strengths. That's how you can use a strength. You look at, what am I good at? What can I do? And how can I put this to create my ideal self? Now the key is to do it daily. And that's also what we learn in positive psychology, is that for something to become a habit, you have to do it every day. So this practice of the best I is something you can do for a few minutes in the morning or a few minutes in the evening, but it has to be done consistently. When I'm teaching bar mitzvah children, and I always ask them, do you play an instrument, or do you play a game, soccer? And they say, a sport? And they say, yeah. And I say, well, would you be any good at it? Would you be able to perform if you didn't practice? No. And do you want to practice once a month? Or do you think at least a couple times a week? And they said a couple times a week, probably, and with the musicians every single day. And that's what the small changes help. After I had COVID, I had to stop running, but I started to walk. And the very first day, I couldn't make it to the end of my street. But every day I went out and went a little further and a little further and got back up to 4 miles. So it's those little small incremental change. So we started with the breathing, which is the B in BEST. We've got a rudimentary form of the I, the ideal self. Now the E, the EST. We've got the B, got the I, E. E stands for excerpt. So excerpt is you read an excerpt. You read a quote that inspires you. So, and you prime your environment with them too, so you don't have to go looking them up. I have one here on the front of my computer. Appreciate everything, even the ordinary, especially the ordinary. It's from Pema Chodron. I have one from Maya Angelou. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. I had to have my internet router, I think you call it router here in America, put in. And I had a satellite in the kitchen, and I hired a technician to put in the router. And he's putting in the router in my office, and he sees these quotes all over the place. And then on the back here, do something you love every day. And then he goes into the kitchen, and he sees a quote from Caroline Adams Miller that is from her book, Getting Grit. Do what scares you first. And he comes back into my office here and he says, you know, Your house is so inspiring. I just came to put your internet in and I'm leaving with all this inspiration. So you can inspire other people just by being who you are. And reading these excerpts can inspire you as well. And it's not necessarily an excerpt. It can be a poem that you love. It can be an image. I have an image of Joan Borisenko's mandala of angels, because angels are a thing for me. So in fact, I picked an angel card this morning, but I have her mandala of angels that I sometimes look at with my best eye. It's in her book. I think it's called something of miracles, a pocket full of miracles. Thank you, Phoebe. In her book, a pocket full of miracles. So I have on my phone a photograph that says you are resilient. So after you've done your breathing, read, listen to something that inspires you. It could be a poem. Sometimes I listen to David White. Just be careful when you turn on your electronics that you don't get sucked into emails and stuff like that. The next thing is to engage your senses, the S, to engage your senses. You've already got yourself in this place from breathing. You've now been inspired by an excerpt or a poem or whatever you've chosen for your inspiration and image. Now use your senses. Look at something beautiful. I look outside at my fig tree in my garden, or a picture of a condor on my wall that's flying over the cliffs of Esalen. Look at something that really brings you joy, gives you inspiration. Or listen to music. Remember Stevie Wonder? He couldn't see, but he could hear. He could engage his senses with hearing. And we can touch. Joan Borisenko said that when you hold something soft to your chest, it releases chemicals that bring a sense of comfort. Taste a cup of your favorite beverage. I wouldn't suggest wine in the morning. For me, it's tea. For others, it's coffee. Enjoy that taste. Smell a flower or essential oils, something that uplifts you. I really appreciate my sense of taste and smell after COVID, because I lost my sense of taste and smell. So now when I taste something, it tastes extra sweet. So I really appreciate that. Which leads me to the T in the best eye. The T is to offer thanks, gratitude. Sonia Lubomirsky says it promotes the savoring of positive life experiences. It ameliorates stress and trauma. It encourages moral behavior. It helps build and strengthen social bonds. But I like what Maria Sirois says about it. She says, gratitude as a concept is interesting, but as a felt sense, it's a game changer. In fact, gratitude, thanks, is so important that on the front of my book, the first finger and the first chapter of the book talks about thank you. It's a book of questions about how to say thank you to someone. The questions to ask yourself to express the gratitude, but to feel the gratitude. So express the thanks. You can write them down. Express thoughts. T can also be for thoughts. When we feel that gratitude, it changes everything. So we've gone through the B, the breathing, the E, the excerpts, the S, the senses, the T, expressing thanks and gratitude. All these things, the engaging of your senses, the breathing, gets you in a space to be able then to read your ideal self and embrace it. So I wanted to share with you the ideal self that I wrote back when I started my positive psychology immersion. I wrote, I am inspiring. I am adaptable. I am a visionary. I am successful at getting my message across. All those things, I didn't feel I had them at the time, but I'm still working on them, and I realized that they have come true. I am adaptable. I'm told I do inspire. Even the technician that comes to put in my internet, I inspired him. Visionary. The word in Hebrew for cantor is chazan, which the root means visionary. The chazan is the person that takes the prayers and visions them and is the conduit for the congregation to reach, to open up their spirituality. I want to go back again to the daily practice. One of the things that I do with my bar mitzvah kids is I ask them what's going well. And sometimes they can't tell me what's going well. Nothing's going well. So then I change the question to, what was the best part of your day so far? And they can always tell me something, even the smallest thing. But what happens is that all week long, they know I'm going to ask them that question the following week. So they come to the Zoom ready to answer what's going well, what's the best part of your day. And they're looking for what's going well. And they're looking for what's the best part of my day. I'm writing now. I've been writing my whole life. That was originally what I wanted to do with my life. I was told at school that women don't become writers. Jewish women become mums, and you can be a teacher, a nurse, or a social worker. And I chose social work. But I never lost my love for writing. I wrote my first book with the help of my coach who brought it out for me. And now there's another book coming out as a result of positive psychology. This is really the best I. I also envisioned, in a longer practice of the ideal self, having written another book. I didn't write the whole book. I did something better. I wrote a chapter on spirituality for Donna Matira Miller's collaborative book. 25 of us have written a chapter all about, all of us alumni of the positive psychology program, all of us part of a tribe that is bringing positive psychology that might be, as Tal Ben-Shahar calls it, from the ivory tower, bringing it to Main Street. Because everybody has this inside of them. I mentioned before that poetry is one of my things. I love poetry. And often I read or listen to it, poetry as an excerpt. But I also, it's a little more difficult now since I've had COVID. I used to memorize poetry every single day, and I still attempt to do that, so that I have it available to me when I want to present. So what I want to end with today is a poem by Mary Oliver. I think it's really relevant to the ideal self. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves, and they call out, "Stay a while, stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. They say, "It's simple, it's simple. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. You too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine." I wish you and your ideal self a Shana Tova, a Happy New Year. I'll be thinking of you when I'm singing on my pulpit and looking up. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Beautiful, Sue. Can you sing the song you sang at the beginning once more?
Yeah. I see the moon sees me, the moon sees somebody I want to see. So God bless the moon, and God bless me, and God bless the somebody I want to see.
So amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this inspiring session. Does anyone have any questions? The comments in the chat, I don't know if you're getting to see them.
Yeah.
Thank you. You truly are inspiring, inspirational. This has been so special. Thank you. Fantastic. Shana Tova, fabulous. Thank you. Wow, you are inspiring.
The poem is "When I Am Among the Trees" by Mary Oliver.
Yes, yes. And I just want to remind everyone that if you're interested in studying positive psychology, both Sue and I have graduated from this program. It's been life-changing. It is a wonderful thing to do when you are going through a transition. It's a 9-month course. Of course, there's also shorter courses on the Whole Being Institute website that you can take as Sue did to start with if the whole big long course is not doable for you. And next on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about the P, inspire, and its connection to the S. So Sue, you've set me up so well, because for me, exercising is spiritual. And I'm going to be telling the story about how I have found meaning. As Tal Ben Shahar says, rather than asking what is the meaning of life, find meaning in life. And you have helped me do that today.
Thank you
so much.
I'm seeing some questions.
Oh, go for it.
The I is in ideal self. I, me, I. So Kirk asked, what's the I am best I? And my accent, I'm from England. I grew up my first few years in Manchester, and then I was in different foster homes, so it was all over England. The longest place I ever lived was in Letchworth, Hertfordshire. So
Awesome.
England, that's my accent. Some people ask me if I'm South African or Australian. I can tell the difference, but yeah.
Yes, and I wanted to let everybody also know that we've got some upcoming programs too that can support you. I love that someone said, I had forgotten myself. I'd almost forgotten myself, and you reminded me to come back to me. Yeah. Wow, that's a great comment. I'm going to take the spotlight off, and you're welcome, everyone, to come and say thank you to Sue.
One more question. Vance, what ways do you record or read your best self statements, singing, flashcards, ideas? I do everything, even on my writing my books. I write about 1,000 words a week. I do it all in these 50-cent notebooks that you buy at Target, and I do everything by hand. So, and then I put it on the computer.
Do you find that activates your brain in a
It
different way?
activates your brain. And when I was learning to write music, my teacher would never allow, in college, would never allow us to submit music that was put on the computer program without being handwritten first, because he said that the creativity comes from the brain-hand connection. So,
Yeah, I think Maria Montessori would agree with you,
and
right?
that was my first preschool,
Oh,
Montessori.
right. And for those of you that don't know, Maria Montessori is the one that created the
Yes.
preschools, and she really believed that working with the hands is a way to activate the brain. And when I was interviewing um, a brain researcher who talks, a neurologist who does a lot of research on the brain, she actually said that the hand is one of the largest maps in the human brain. The largest is actually the lips, and then
Right.
the next is the hands.
In fact, you know, I called it the healing hand because when my children were going back and forth from the hospital, when my husband was dying, the hospice person had said, you need to have some discussions with him. And they asked me what discussions, and they were 5. So I said, thank you. I forgive you. Will you forgive me? I love you, and goodbye. And it became a mnemonic, a memory tool. And then I realized, oh, this is what I use to when I'm dealing with someone who is in the actively dying. I use my hands. I touch them. So it's and you know, if you do this, you create an energy, and you can actually feel it. I was once doing a wedding, and the bride and groom wanted everybody in a circle around them. So everybody was in the circle. I'm standing under the chuppah, the wedding canopy, and I asked everybody to do this and then direct their loving energy at the couple. And I swear to you, I almost couldn't keep my balance. It was like all this energy that came. It was the most amazing experience. So.
And what is that one of the reasons that inspired you to write that book?
My husband's death.
Yeah.
My husband's death. I used those discussions, the 5 discussions with families, because I was working for an assisted living facility, and I used that in helping, and everybody said it was so helpful, and I thought, well, okay. And then I was invited to speak in the Jewish Theological Seminary about music in the hospital room, and I brought this along with me, the diagram, because I hadn't written the book yet. And people came, my son did the picture, and people came up to me and said, the rabbis and the cantors, well, where can we get your book? And I came home and I said to my coach, Bev, crap, I have to write a book. That's how it came about. So
And what's your next project? Are you writing another one?
I am in the process of writing a spiritual memoir. I've been working with Joan Borisenko and Mark Matusek. So I've got about 15,000 words towards it so far.
Wonderful. Vance is asking for you to hold up the book one more time. Okay. So I think people are interested, and Phoebe put in your blog so that
I actually recorded it as an audiobook. It just came out a couple months ago. It's available on Amazon and Audible and iTunes.
Yeah, very nice. That's great. And let's see what else.
Do we have a way to save the chat?
Oh, of course. You can, everyone, you can save the chat yourselves if you go to the very bottom and hit the 3 dots, and it'll say save chat. And that will do that. And then, of course, Sue, we can send you the chat as well.
Can I put this down now?
Yes, you can. And Kurt said, hence the reason we talk with our hands, right? Right. And it's also a way to use more than one sense to touch when we're doing that. We can also see and smell. I think these are great.
I have a funny story about that.
Oh,
so I went to the University of London, and I'm sitting in college in a social psychology class. and I'm at the front and I can't see the people behind me. And I'm talking to the teacher. I'm talking the way I talk, right, with my hands. And then I see that she's got this funny expression on her face, and I look around, and everybody's going like this, mimicking me. And I didn't realize until that time how much I couldn't talk without my hands, and how much I did. And it was interesting because if you've watched, I think it was The Crown, when they were Princess Diana, they made her put her hands down, and I thought, oh my goodness, how could she talk?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that scene very much. And well, being a mover, to me, this is like the hands are an extension of the heart. So I feel like when I talk and move with my hands, I'm communicating with my heart.
And in Judaism, we have the tefillin, the phylacteries. We put one on the head, one on the arm, and they wrap it around the hand. And it's actually wrapped so it spells the word Shaddai, which is the name of God. And it's yeah.
Well, Sue, will you promise to come back when you have completed your book, or any time you'd like to come back?
Well, the book that's coming out that Donna's going to present, I think all the authors are going to be there.
Oh,
I just have to keep my mouth shut. I can talk.
that's all right. We can tease everybody. This is why you need to keep coming to the Positive Psychology Hour every Tuesday and Thursday, so you don't
Well,
miss.
I've been attending. Your NEA class. I just loved your NEA class. Just, at a time when I couldn't walk, it was a gentle way I could exercise. So it's really helpful. I only saw it once at Esalen. They did a NEA class, but
Yeah. Well, we're online every Thursday morning at 9:30 doing NIA. I just did my second in-person NIA class at the JCC. It's so amazing to move in community with others. And I imagine singing must feel that way. When you sing with others and harmonize, it's like there's something larger than yourself.
right. And singing affects both sides of the brain. I used to do a program called Singing for the Brain from the Alzheimer's Association. I used to do a program every week in a memory care unit. And there was one man, and it was a Jewish unit. There was a man that would sit, and he looked catatonic. And I knew he was a Holocaust survivor, and I knew he loved Yiddish, and I knew his favorite song from his family. And I would come in and start singing, Schön wie die Levone, lichtig wie die Sterne, and he would start singing with me. It's music therapy is amazing. It does some amazing things. That I love music. So.
Well, we have more to talk about, Sue, because music and the brain is one of my passions as well. And I cannot believe that we're at the top of the hour already. Everyone, please join me. As I said, I will remove all the spotlights in thanking Sue and in wishing her well as you recover from COVID. It sounds like these tools that you do a little bit every day have really made a difference. And I think that's one of the things, the unsung sort of secrets of positive psychology. It's how can I be just a little bit happier, make life a little bit more meaningful,
Absolutely.
even if it's just 1%. And doing that consistently over time makes all the difference. And
And
that's
doing it with other people,
yeah,
who,
yeah.
which is the beauty of SIP, is you have a whole network of people doing it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for that song. I actually have never heard that before. And yeah, that was a real treat to me. I want to learn it so I can sing it, not only to myself, but to the kiddos in my life. And I think we all have an inner kiddo. So keep those songs coming, everybody. Feel free to unmute.
Kathy is
I have a question for Caroline.
Yeah.
The NIA class that's on Thursday at like 9 or 9:30, whatever, is that free, and is that through JCC?
That's through the JCC Health Club, and there is a fee for that one. But come on Thursday, because we're going to be doing a little bit of ANIA, a little bit of all different kinds of exercise. What I want to do is explore with you how can we make exercise meaningful so it isn't a chore? And what's the difference in making exercise actually a calling? And I'm going to introduce you to somebody who Phoebe and I know really well, who we've been working out with throughout the pandemic, whose exercise, who's a trainer, is his calling. It's his passion, and how he looks at that, and what the lessons we have learned from him when exercise becomes a connection to our to our spirituality.
I think I need that.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
That was fabulous. Thank you so much.
After
I
these.
enjoyed it.
Very much for an outstanding session. Thank you.
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
On Thursday. Bye,
Thank
Sue.
you. Bye.
Bye.